Think Media, and Kofigo Media. Ladies and gentlemen, before I yield to the Honorable Minister, permit me to acknowledge the dignitaries who are here with us this afternoon. First of all, I would like to acknowledge all directors from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture and also the Ministry of Information. In particular, I would like to acknowledge the Acting Chief Director and Director of Finance and Administration at the Ministry of Agric, Mr. Paul Siambi. Also with us is the Chief Director at Ministry of Information, Madam Fatili Lisoli. We are also joined by the CEO of Ghana Irrigation Development Authority, Engineer Richard Boateng. Also with us is Mrs. Paulina Abe, Director, Women in Agriculture Development. We are also joined by Madam Alice Zhu. She is the Procurement Director here at the Ministry of Information. Dr. Solomon Ansa Jan, Director, Crop Services Directorate. Also with us, ladies and gentlemen, is Mr. DeYang, the Director, Agriculture Engineering Services Directorate. Also joining us this afternoon is Ms. Doris Vayi, the Director, Procurement at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. We also have thus Ms. Josephine Quagrin, Acting Director, PPB MED at the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. We are also joined by Dr. Ba Adade, the National Coordinator for YIAP and GASIPS, also from the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. Advisor to the Honorable Minister, Honorable Odro, is here with us. Yes. And also with us, I've seen some special guests also joining us for today's press briefing. We are joined by the Honorable Minister for Defense and Member of Parliament for the good people of Bimbilla constituency, Honorable Dominic Nitiwo. Also with us is my big brother and Member of Parliament for Karaga constituency, who is also the Minister for Finance, Dr. Muhammad Amin Adam. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, permit me to acknowledge our media partners as I yield to the Honorable Minister for Food and Agriculture for his initial remarks. If you joined us this afternoon, we are live on GTV, Joy News, Channel 1 TV, Netu TV, UTV, ABC News GH, Sagani TV, Northern TV, Asasi Radio, Oman FM, and streaming on Facebook at Ministry of Information, Mofa GH, Think Ghana, and also Kofigo Media. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I will yield to Dr. Brian Champon, the Honorable Minister for Food and Agriculture, for his initial remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, colleague ministers, members of the press, the good people of Ghana. We have a situational crisis on our hands. I come before you today on a critical issue affecting 8 regions of our country: the Northern, Upper East, Northeast, Savannah, Upper West, Bono East, and OT regions. Specifically, these regions had, up until last Wednesday, experienced dry spells that have led to the disruption of crop production. The lack of rain over the past 2 months has severely impacted the planting season in many of the farming areas. Of the 8 regions, the northern region is the worst, with the Upper East region being the least affected. Some of the notable communities affected in the Upper East region include Gaboliga, Teshi, Boya, and Angpaliga. With no rains for 2 months leading up to the planting season, crops that were sown in anticipation of the rains have been left struggling without sufficient moisture. And there are fears of low yields and potential crop failures. We are keenly monitoring the situation in the southern regions, which are also experiencing some rainfall disruptions, delaying the onset of the southern sector minor planting season. The livelihoods, investment, and incomes of over 980,000 farmers cultivating an estimated 1.8 million hectares are at risk. And the ripple effects on agricultural value chain actors, such as the farmhands, aggregators, processors, traders, transporters, and on food supply could be felt across the entire country. We fully understand the immense pressure this situation places on farmers, value chain actors, and our food system. And I'm here to outline the steps we are taking to support farmers' livelihoods, ensure the adequacy of food supply, as well as steps MOFA is taking to avoid a recurrence in the future. Before I delve into the details of the situation, let me give a brief update on the progress made so far on our program for achieving food security and resilience. That is the Planting for Food and Jobs 2.0. And also to assure the nation that the measures we are putting in place will mitigate any potential adverse effect on a dry spell on farmers and on our food systems. The Ministry of Food and Agriculture designed and rolled out a 5-year master plan for food security and resilience, Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 2, in August 2023. The master plan targets self-sufficiency in the production of 10 crops and poultry over the period. To ensure a seamless integration of all actors for effective delivery of all interventions under the Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 2, the ministry completed the development of an integrated digital solutions platform known as the Ghana Agriculture and Agribusiness Platform, GAP. The GAP has enabled the ministry to identify and register 553,955 farmers out of the target 1.2 million farmers for 2024. The registration is still ongoing. 55 private sector aggregators, 31 input dealers, 38 off-takers, and 22 service providers have also been registered on the platform. In 2023, we were able to achieve our production targets for grains, vegetables, and tubers, except for poultry, whose achievement fell short by a target of 15%. That is 19,816 metric tons as against 23,250 metric tons. The specific gross production volumes and achievement rates compared to our targets for the crops are as follows. Maize, 3.6 million, that is 103%. Sorghum, 439,000, 99.6%. Soya, 343,000, 117%. Paddy rice, 1.4 million, 99.64%. Cassava, 27.8 million, 102%. Yam, 11,474,000, 109%, 100.9%, and plantain, 7.3 million, 119%. In 2024, we set out to achieve the following production and self-sufficiency targets based on net productions against consumption. Those with the PFJ document, please refer to page 27 of it. Poultry, we tend to move from 5% self-sufficiency to 13% self-sufficiency, and that is producing 42,600 metric tons. Rice, 908,000 metric tons, which will bring us to 59% self-sufficiency. Maize, 3.5 million, 130% self-sufficiency to make room for export. Soya, 324,000, 102% self-sufficiency. Sorghum, 500,000, 93% self-sufficiency. Tomato, 518,000, which will bring us to 40% self-sufficiency. Pepper, 169,000, 52% self-sufficiency. Onion, 189,000, 58% self-sufficiency. Cassava, 23 million, 126% self-sufficiency. Yam, 10.5 million, 115% self-sufficiency. Plantain, 5.7 million, which will bring us to 124,000 self-sufficiency. To achieve these targets, the ministry implemented a number of interventions, amongst them the distribution of high-quality agro-inputs, land development, and irrigation development. Under the PFJ 2.0 input credit system, the GAP registration grant, the flood victims relief support, and the grant support to vulnerable farmers, the following agro-inputs have been distributed from August 2023 to date across the country. 2.3 million bags of fertilizers, 2.6 million kilograms of rice seeds, 3.3 million kilograms of maize seeds, 10,000 kilograms of vegetable seeds, which is onion, pepper, and tomato, 820,000 liters of agrochemicals, 7 million day-old chicks, 52 million doses of vaccines, and 12.8 million kilograms of feed. I must add that the last mile distribution to reach the target farmers is still ongoing in some districts. Irrigation development. The ministry has this year invested in the development of irrigation facilities in the northern, upper west, upper east, and eastern regions, covering a total irrigable area of 4,700 hectares to expand crop production. Procurement processes have also commenced for the construction of 13 irrigation facilities, which will add 15,500 hectares of irrigable land. The construction of 19 small earth dams, covering a total area of 605 hectares, are also currently in progress in the northern, upper east, and upper west regions. These irrigation schemes are complemented with the construction of 500 boreholes for solar pump irrigation systems and the procurement of 1,000 pumps for water extraction for vegetable production. When completed, these additional schemes will enable the irrigation of 6,250 hectares of farmland for all year-round vegetable farming. The ministry has also engaged the services of contractors to develop 14,150 hectares of farmland for smallholder and commercial farmers. This will add 144,000 metric tons of maize per annum to our national production. On post-harvest infrastructure, to address the perennial problem of post-harvest losses, especially for vegetables, the ministry is investing in the construction of 26 aggregation centers and 12 pack houses in selected districts across the vegetable growing regions in the country. We have also commenced the construction of a 60,000 metric ton silo facility in Sheshe in the Kwahu East district for the storage of rice and maize as part of the Strategic Grain Reserve Program. Let me now come to the issue that has brought us here. The Ghana Meteorological Agency, GMET, predicted intermittent dry spells during this year's cropping season. However, The dry spells in the 8 regions have been continuous, resulting in near drought conditions that have significantly disrupted production. The weather for July and August have been relatively dry and sunny. The pattern of rainfall has been unreliable, and the amount of rainfall recorded this season has been lower compared to that of last year. This situation prevented some farmers from preparing their farmlands for production, while those who were able to prepare their land could not sow due to the absence of moisture. The farmers who took advantage of the early rains in June have experienced severe water stress on their farms. Most of the crops, especially maize and groundnut, have reached their critical wilting points. Let me take you through the weather situation using 3 selected regions as case studies. The Upper West region. This graph on your screen illustrates a stark contrast in rainfall between 2023 and 2024 from June to mid-August. 2023 saw significantly higher rainfall with a pronounced peak in early August. In contrast, in 2024, experienced considerable lower rainfall throughout this period, indicating a potential drought or significantly higher drier conditions this year. This drastic decrease in rainfall could have severe implications for agriculture and water resources. You will see on the graph that in 2024, we received 575 millimeters of rainfall as compared to 982 millimeters of rainfall in 2023. In the Bono East region, Abiasi is located in the Prang district in Bono East. The graph shows a comparison that in this particular area, from July 10th to August 12th, the area received 0 rain. 0 rain. And thus, in Abiasi, in the Prang district, from the period July 1st to August 12th, they received 351 millimeters of rain as against 937 at same period last year. The weather condition in the northern region. The northern region experienced low rainfall this year as compared to last year, as shown on the graph. Finally, the crop and pastoral impact due to the prolonged dry spell. On the screen, you will see a shift from green to brown and yellow hues in 2024, which is the first image on the screen. It indicates a decreased vegetation health, suggesting plants are under stress from lack of moisture. The extensive brown and yellow areas highlight the widespread impact of the dry spell in the region. The image is from 2022, which is at the bottom of Upper West, Upper East, and the same on top, showing the severe stress and the lack of moisture. The final image is data from Ignitia, which is the next image. This data from Ignitia from 13th to 20th August, 7 days, shows rainfall experienced in the whole country and the sub-region. The dark red means greater than 100 millimeters, yellow 30 millimeters, and green 10 millimeters. The oval marking indicates areas where almost no rainfall has been observed, indicative also of the past month. Information from Ignitia, sourced from Agromite, indicates a heavy rainfall, and this is the rainfall situation or the outlook. Ignitia's report, as sourced from Agromite, indicates a heavy rainfall eventually passing through on the 20th of August. This resulted in large volumes in several locations in Tamale, Bole, Wa, Navrungu, Yendi, and most of the savanna and northern regions, and also benefited from this rain. And this is good news. The 20th August rain event is expected to mark the beginning of more plentiful rains in the central and northern parts of Ghana. The end of the season is expected in mid to late October for extreme north and middle of November for central Ghana, with coastal Ghana set for dry season in December. The outlook for the next 4 weeks. Sufficient amount of rain for crop growth is expected over the next 2 weeks across the northern half of Ghana, and the rainfall distribution is also marginally conducive for planting a little further south in Bono East, Ahafo, northern half of Ashanti and Oti regions. In about 2 weeks' time, all regions except the coastal regions are expected to receive adequate rainfall volumes. The outlook from September to December marks September 1, or the month of September, marks the beginning of the second rainy season in the south of Ghana, as rains start to contract towards the coast. This means that most of the southern Ghana should be able to see sufficient amounts of rain to support crop growth. Rainfall will hence become more frequent and abundant throughout the country during September, before the dry season starts setting in around mid to late October in northern Ghana, mid-November for southern half, with the exception of the coastal areas in the northern regions, where the dry season is expected only in December. Now, the effects of the dry spell. Preliminary reports indicate that about 928,523 farmers, cropping 1,855,000 hectares, are at risk. And I'm talking about those at risk. These farmers will lose an estimated investment of 7.4 billion cedis if there is total crop failure. The 928,523 farmers cropping 1.8,507,000 hectares, those at risk, they will lose an estimated investment of 7.4 billion if there is total crop failure. The corresponding revenue loss is estimated at 22.2 billion. So the investment is what they put in seeds, in inputs, fertilizers, farm hands, and all that they put into crop. That is 7 billion. The revenue is the sales, what they will derive from the investment that they will make. And that is estimated at 22 billion, representing 10% of agriculture GDP, which in itself is about 220 billion. As at 20th August, 435,872 farmers, cultivating an estimated area of 871,000 hectares, have been directly affected. So earlier on, I talked about those at risk being 928,523. The 435,872 are those that have been confirmed as affected as at 20th August, and the audit is still ongoing. Maize, rice, groundnut, soya bean, sorghum, millet, and yam are the most widely affected crops across these regions. The affected farmers have lost an estimated investment of 3.5 billion with a corresponding potential revenue of 10.4 billion. So of those affected, not the entire at risk that I mentioned have lost 22 billion. The confirmed affected, they have lost an investment of 3.5 billion and the corresponding potential revenue of 10.4 billion. These drought conditions have far-reaching implications for food security and livelihoods with the following notable consequences. Food shortage. The affected regions contribute about 62% of the country's grain supply. The affected regions, they contribute about 62% of the country's grain supply. However, from September to December, and maybe January, February of the following year, which coincides with the minor season of important implications. Very concerned about. It is estimated that the farmers affected significant damage experienced, and the estimates coming in, the ministry believes that it will have to write off over 90% of the total expected production. So for those that are affected, we have to write off about 90% of their total production, which means that we are writing off their investment effectively. There, of course, I have mentioned that there will be a decline in agricultural GDP. The estimated production losses will lead to about a 10% decline in agriculture GDP. The northern regions are located near our neighboring countries that are experiencing some form employed, idle, and hungry, and feel a sense of hopelessness in the absence of any interventions from government. In response to the phenomenon, the government is taking long-term. Government expects the sector to develop resilience to these climatic conditions as it rolls out more irrigation and water management schemes. The immediate interventions from now to January 2025. The following measures have been approved by government for implementation by the food security crisis. With immediate effect, government is placing a ban on the export of grains, including maize, rice, soya bean, until the situation normalizes. This measure is essential to ensure the availability of these critical crops on the domestic market. Any farmer with stock and interested in selling should contact our district directorates across the country, our district aggregators, or the Directorate of Crops, Ministry of Agriculture. This is to ensure that farmers do not suffer adversely from this ban. As earlier mentioned, the affected regions contribute over 62% of our grain supply. With the projected shortfall in grain supply, government will tap into the ECOWAS grain reserve and partner with the private sector to bridge the gap. Government will also bring in 300,000 metric tons of maize and 150,000 metric tons of rice to provide food support to vulnerable farmers who have lost their crop and also for the market. Additionally, we will bring in a total volume of 26,000 metric tons of poultry feed to directly support the poultry industry, as maize, their main raw material, has been severely affected. The following interventions will also be targeted directly at farmers to bring them relief. Cash transfers. We have identified 928,523 farmers cultivating 1.8 million hectares who are at risk, but been able to confirm 435,000. Of the at risk, we have been able to confirm 435,000, cultivating 871,000 hectares. Government has decided to provide financial support amounting to 1,000 Ghana cedis per hectare to the most vulnerable among these farmers as partial cover for their investment. Government will also provide affected vulnerable farmers with some food grant to enable them meet their minimum nutritional requirement. Input support. Seed replanting assistance. For farmers whose crops have failed due to the lack of rain, we will be launching a replanting support program. This will include the provision of fast-maturing seeds that can still be planted within the remaining window of the season. Farmers who need to replant will also be provided with some grant fertilizers to ensure that they can still achieve a reasonable yield. Planting for Food and Jobs is focused on input credit, but for the affected farmers who have lost their investment, we need to run a blend, and the government intervention will be to provide them with some input grant, and they also have access to the input credit. This will help mitigate the financial burden on farmers who are facing additional costs due to the dry spell. Let me also mention that there will be a boost in input support for farmers in the southern sector to maximize their production in the minor season. It is important that we do this to bridge so that we can reduce the food that we intend to bring in. So if we can boost production in the southern sector, which planting season is starting now, it will help us reduce the food that we intend to bring in. Farmer relief support. The following interventions will also be targeted at farmers to bring them relief, which is activating all our extension officers across the country and the private sector aggregators extension officers on ground to help with the proper agronomic and soil conservation practices to help retain soil moisture and give the crops the best chance to survive. To avert future reoccurrence, the ministry, through the Food Systems Resilience Project, is working with GMET to provide agro-meteorological forecasts and advisories for agriculture. Let me mention that one of the things that affected, even though we communicated to farmers in a way, not every farmer was able to get the information. And so what we are experiencing, what we are seeing now on the ground is that the planting season has been delayed by 1 month because the meteorological information could not reach farmers. Many farmers planted and therefore got caught up in this challenge that we are in. So we have acquired 20 automatic weather stations for GMET, which will be installed at key locations nationwide. We recognize, in conclusion, we recognize that the ultimate and sustainable solutions to the current situation, which is a reflection of the inherent risk of climate change, is the provision of irrigation and water management systems that support all year-round farming. To this end, government shall mobilize the required resources to complete all irrigation projects under the Agricultural Economic Enclaves Program, as well as the completion of all irrigation projects in the pipeline. The PFJ 2.0 continues to be our roadmap to achieving food security and resilience. Government will remain focused on the program and ensure that the rollout of all the planned interventions to meet the targets. MOFA will continue to monitor the crop situation in both the northern and southern minor seasons and, of course, sectors, and keep the nation informed. Thank you very much. We have on the screen some images of the situations up north, if you can continue scrolling. So this is a farm, a wilted maize farm in Pandai in the Oti region. This farm is more than 100 acres. And this is what you see as the sort of height of the farm. Sorry, Pandai in northern region. This is a 2-month-old maize plant, 2 months. I want to show you a 500-acre rice farm in the Bono East region, near a village called Jatokrom, close to Kentampo. This is a 500-acre rice farm, completely destroyed. The next image is a 1,000-acre farm. Next, please. Next. 1,000-acre maize farm, completely destroyed. This is 2 months old. The maize that you see is 2 months old, completely gone. So you can imagine if you're a farmer and you've made this investment, totally, and they look, even at 2 months, they look green, but it's all gone. It's all gone. It's quite a sad situation. There's a next gentleman on a rice farm. Yep. You see the faces of our citizens that are in the next image, please. And these are the faces of dejection, having suffered this loss. The gentleman on the left on the farm, when we spoke with him, was quite sad. I think he had gotten to the point. It's quite a sad situation. Next, our extension officers, scroll up. Our officers are on the ground, surveying, identifying our affected farmers and farms throughout the country. There's a very, keep scrolling. I had to take the Minister for Finance to Bono East, Jatokrom, Kentampo, and Tamale, Lamasheku, to show him firsthand what the challenges are on the ground. There's an image. Very well. You can skip the video.
Maize that should have been looking healthier than you see. And this is as a result of the effect of the drought that we have experienced here in the Sisale Enclave for several weeks. This is the farm that I had shared pictures of earlier on my wall, located in between Jeffy.
Very well. We will have all these images and videos on the MOFA portal, on the GAP portal, if you are interested in downloading them. Our PRO will also make soft copies for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for the swift action taken and for that impressive presentation. Clearly, we are in good hands. It calls for worry, but with the presentation you have made, and all the measures we've put across, I am confident that we are in good hands. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister for Finance and Member of Parliament for Karaga constituency, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, for his remarks.
Well, thank you very much, honorable ministers, ladies and gentlemen. Listening to the Minister for Food and Agriculture, he described the situation as a situational crisis. But what I saw when I visited the field with him really is a crisis. A crisis is a crisis. Because I spoke to the farmers directly, and I went to the farms. There is nothing left for the farmers. And given that the food from the north is what we consumed from September thereabout to early in the year, it will just hit us very soon. And this is why I think it's a crisis. It's coming, as some people may see it, but others are already feeling it. And so it is important that government responds, and responds quickly. I did not only accompany the Minister for Agriculture, I also accompanied His Excellency the President to farms in the Tolang district. And I felt so sad about what the farmers expressed in their frustration, in their worry about where to get food to live on. Investments have been lost, and even with the rains that we are experiencing now, the rains may not be enough to support the maturity of crops. Usually, in the northern part of Ghana, by this time, new maize is on the market. If you go to markets in Tamale, you will not find a bag of maize. Prices are also going up. And so, for those of us in charge of the management of the economy, we are directly affected from different perspectives. Number one, our focus as a government, having stabilized the economy, and we are seeing the macro fundamentals improving day by day, we decided that we will focus on growth, economic growth. And we saw the numbers last year, ending the year by 2.9% economic growth. First quarter of this year, achieving 4.7% growth. And we're expecting that this trend will continue to the end of the year. But realizing that one of our growth poles, if you like, one of the major contributors to our growth, which is agriculture, is now facing the kind of challenges that we are seeing. It simply means that our growth trajectory is in danger. Economic growth is in danger. We also look at it from the perspective of pricing. We have seen for some time now inflation trending down from about 54% inflation in 2022, by end of 2022, to about 20% inflation in June this year. And our expectation is that we end the year with an inflation rate of 15%. I am very optimistic that we will make significant progress. But we also know that our inflation basket is dominated by food inflation. When you see food shortage, and therefore the effect on prices, you should expect that inflation will respond, and will respond in the way that you do not want. Then we are also talking about bringing in food for the market, and also to provide food reliefs. I'm here to discuss with the minister how we are going to source the food. He may be running away from mentioning imports, but we already import a lot of our food. And so one other ways the economy may be affected is from the perspective of foreign exchange. People are complaining the cedi is getting weaker against the dollar, the rate is higher against the cedi. And so if you are going to bring in more food to support what we already have, you need to back it with forex. And therefore the demand for the dollar will certainly increase relative to what we anticipated if we didn't have to meet the additional food requirement, some of which may come through imports. And so in different ways, the economy is going to be affected. But this is why we are a government. That when we see things like this happening, we have to respond. Our response may not entirely neutralize the extent of the problem, but our response certainly will help in stabilizing the situation until we get out of the crisis. And so, as the Honorable Minister for Food and Agriculture said, we are seeking to raise about $500 million US, the equivalent of 8 billion Ghana cedis, to fund the crisis response program. This is so much money. But we are doing this also at a time when our buffers are almost depleted. We are entering the 8th month or the 9th month of our fiscal year. The budget has been implemented so far for about 8 to 9 months. And you should expect that most of your financial buffers are not there any longer. So this is a difficulty, but we have to raise the funds. As a responsible government, as a sensitive government as we are, His Excellency the President has directed that we do everything within our power to find the money to fund the government response. So far, from the budget side, we have been able to secure up to $160 million. That's about 2.5 billion Ghana cedis. This is largely coming from the contingency fund, which our constitution established. And so we intend to trigger the processes for accessing the contingency fund. We are also doing what we call budgetary alignment to reallocate some funds that were originally meant for other purposes towards addressing the crisis. And so together, 2.5 billion Ghana cedis is being mobilized from the budget side. We're also relying on our development partners, and we've had serious engagements with our development partners over the past 1 week or so. And within this short period, we can report that we are able to secure 155 million US dollars. That is about 2.4 billion, almost 2.5 billion Ghana cedis. And so out of the 8 billion Ghana cedis we are seeking to mobilize, we can say that we have visibility on about 5 billion Ghana cedis that we want to use, and use it quickly to respond to this crisis. It may be interesting to also note that the part coming from the development partners, mainly led by the World Bank, will be used for measures such as the cash transfers and also to support input supplies, whilst we are seeking to use funds from the budget to bring in more food, more grains, rice, maize, etc., poultry feed for the market, and also to provide food relief to farmers. I should mention also that even though we can have visibility on about $315 million, the balance of about $185 million, we believe we can mobilize them as well. We can mobilize this money. If we have been able to mobilize $315 million, we should be able to mobilize $185 million, because some of the development partners are supporting in kind. If you quantify them in monetary terms, we should be able to get some money from that source. Others are coming in smaller bits. Multilaterals, bilaterals, international development partners, they are all responding to support Ghana address this challenge, because they all have been part of our development journey. Our journey to move away from the crisis we experienced in 2022 in particular. They have been part of this journey. And these are not development partners who are going to sit back for the economy, the gains we have made, to be reversed. And so we are working closely with them to ensure that we respond and respond adequately. Now, some people may be interested in accountability, because usually during crisis, some resources may not be utilized properly or may not be accounted for. We have heard about this in crisis after crisis. We are committed to ensuring transparency and accountability in the management of these resources that we are mobilizing to respond to this crisis. And to do this, we've set up a technical task force comprising development partners and government agencies of Finance Ministry, of Ministry of Food and Agriculture, to ensure that this task force will identify, look at the data again, to identify where support is needed, and also to help in allocating and monitoring the distribution of these resources to ensure that the resources get to affected people. At the end of it all, we should be able to report on what these resources have been used for. And so I want to assure you, the people of Ghana, that this government is going to be transparent, we are going to be accountable, and this, we owe it as a duty to the people of Ghana to ensure that your resources and other resources we raise on your behalf are utilized for the purpose. So I thank you for your attention, and I'll take any question that you have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister for Finance. Sitting there watching both of you speak with so much empathy and thoughtfulness, I have no doubt in my mind that this too shall pass. I'm confident that you will do everything in your power to find the money, first of all, and also to ensure that they get the support. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, yes, I've seen some hands up already, but permit me to acknowledge our media partners picking the feed. Then we'll come to you for the questions. If you have any question, they will bring the microphone to you. You show by hand, mention name and affiliation, and then proceed to ask your question. And please, let's not drag. Keep it brief so that we can take as many as we can. But if you join this press briefing from the comfort of your homes or offices, we are live on GTV, UTV, Joy News, Channel 1 TV, Net2 TV, ABC News GH, Sagani TV, Northern TV, Asasi Radio, Oman FM, and streaming on Facebook at Ministry of Information, Mofa Ghana, Think Media, and Kofigo Media. Thank you. So, Mr. Atamens, I saw your hand. And yes, okay. Okay, so we'll take the first four. I've seen 4 hands, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Atamensa from Ghana News Agency. Yeah, the two ministers have painted a very bleak picture, and I'm so disappointed in the narration. Why am I disappointed? Because over the past 3 or 4 decades, environmental experts have predicted environmental challenges that will come because of the climate change. And so even in desert countries like United Arab Emirates, Israel, that are naturally located in desert areas, made provision to ensure food security. In Ghana, when the government took over, they came out with policies to ensure food security. One of them, one district, one dam. They said they will implement one village, one dam. Then one district, one warehouse. And over the period, they brief us about the food storage and all those things they are doing to ensure the nation is secured. So I'm surprised by this narration. Would the two ministers admit failure on your part to being proactive in averting the situation? That's my first question. The second question. Please let me finish my questions.
No. Please go ahead. I'll let you ask the question. Yes. But they did not admit failures on their part.
Whether they will admit failure.
You can ask your question
because
without
of the policies the government
saying what they
have
haven't said.
So my second question. The Minister of Agriculture said they will ban export.
Because I thought that wasn't a fair ask. Yeah.
Yes.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, my second question. The minister said because of the dire situation we find ourselves, there will be a ban of export of grain outside Ghana. But rather, we will rely on ECOWAS grain reserve to help us cushion the nation. But we are in the same zone. Ghana, we are part of ECOWAS. And so if other countries have managed to secure their food, then it's an issue. If we are going to rely, why we are going to suppress exports, but we are going to rely on ECOWAS countries to support us. That is my problem. Regarding that, Ghana is in the same zone as other West African countries.
Thank you for the question.
I have other 2 questions.
Oh, you've already asked 2. It is fair that you know that it's not fair. You need to allow your colleagues to also ask their questions. Okay. If there is room for other follow-up questions, why not? But let us give your colleagues the opportunity.
Honorable Minister, the name person said your case on Mechicano, Ama Akuafono. Yenimomaya team, a true political season here. Politicians never say, Omo Chama, or Monco for one. Quan Ben soon I'll be assured and say, and conquer party for one Marco Chabama Ghana Funina, and we are one. And number 2, eba ne say ne yesi ekope emwa fi ahoho ne nchen a omo mfa emra me share concerning GMO by force yen sign agreement bia concerning desperation ya wo mu say GMO mo be share kon ye ndua mo niama ne bia na e den assurance no boma say eno no ye we election ye ne say ade ne ba no yen kon sign agreement bia de GMO ba be share kon.
Thank you. Okay, so you take the 3rd and the 4th at the back.
Thank you very much. My name is Cliff Ekufu, I write for the Ghanaian Times. Minister, I would want to find out what the situation is like in the neighboring West African countries that have similar climatic conditions like Ghana. And then secondly, beyond the measures you have taken, what measures have you put in place to ensure that we don't politicize the crisis as has been spelled out by the Minister of Finance? Because this country, we are very quick to unduly politicize virtually everything. So I would want to find out, but for us to succeed, all of us would have to come on board and collectively deal with the issues. So I want to know the measures you have put in place to ensure that you rally all Ghanaians behind the cause. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. There is one hand at the back. Okay, Nana, please, I'll come to you.
Good evening. My name is Sako Kraba. I work with the EIB Networks, Kasapa. Minister, I want to find out from you, have you assessed the cost associated with the ban of these grains as a nation? And then my second question goes to the Finance Minister. With all these interventions outlined, will it have any impact or effect on the country's inflation, given the fact that some few months ago you made it clear that Ghana will end the year with a single digit of inflation? Thank you very much.
Okay, I can't see. Okay, Nana, your hand was up, and we'll take one at the back. Yeah, the ladies, you don't have any questions, or maybe when I come next time. I was looking around just to give you the opportunities.
2 questions for Agric and Finance. Honorable Minister of Agric, we all know that climate change, sorry, my name is Nanapoku from Daily Searchlight. Climate change is affecting Africa, and for that matter, we are all going through it. What permanent, as it were, or long-term solution or policies or programs are you going to put in place to avoid some of these things, because they will recur, because we are facing climate change in the sub-region and Africa for that matter, so that we may not come back here and then be asking for people to come and help us on asking for arms and that, so that we can be on our feet and face the problem head on. Now, Minister of Finance, you are talking of transparency. You know, most often when this thing happens, people overly politicize it. Are you going to include the opposition and the parties so that they also have what we call feely and see things that is happening? Otherwise, whatever you do, whether you involve the development partners or whatever, people will still make political capital out of it. So are you going to include the opposition so that they also see what is happening, and then, therefore, we limit the politicization of every process? Thank you.
Okay, so I'll take the last question for this round. We'll go for the responses and then come back to you.
My name is James Savage. I work with Joy News. I'll start with the Agric Minister. His presentation has been largely on the drought. While we know that this is a twin disaster in the north, for instance, in the Upper East region and then the Northeast region, we have a flood resulting from the Bagri Dam. But there's not been any mention on that. Is this package he talked about going to tackle the flood issues as well? And key about that is the status of the Bagri Dam, if you would give us some update on that as well. Then to the Finance Minister, one key issue that's come up, we would want to ask if he would respond to that, is the issues about judgment debt to Trafigura. If he can give us some details on that.
Please, respectfully, we invited you here to talk about measures to address the drought. If we stick to that so that everyone else can follow the conversation. Please. Okay. Honorable Minister.
Okay, so I will start. And when I ask that, we deserve some respect. Please take it serious. When your ministers stand before you, to give you a report about happenings in the country. You can only help us to address and not to talk us down because we are politicians. So please take note of that. I thought the issue about distribution of the resources was addressed in my remarks. I said that we set up a technical task force comprising development partners and also government agencies. And I don't think any development partner is going to put money for that money to be used for purposes other than the purpose for which they put in that money. Just as we have our governance systems, development partners also have governance systems. They do audits, they do monitoring, just as we do. And so to that extent, I do expect that we will understand the measures that we have already put in place to ensure that resources go to affected farmers. And secondly, I also said that the resources from the development partners will mainly go to the cash transfer relief, and also input supply support. And so I'm wondering whether the World Bank knows the political affiliation of the farmers that are affected, or whether USAID knows the political affiliation of the affected farmers. And so if the money from the development partners is to go to support the cash transfer, I'm wondering how that can be distributed to members of the political party. In any case, let us understand that the people who are affected are not affected by party colors. They are affected by drought. They have no food to eat. Hunger doesn't know political parties. And therefore, the farms that we visited, the minister and I, we visited farms of people whose political affiliation we didn't know. So I'm wondering why anybody will contemplate that this crisis, which is about food, is about hunger, is about survival, can be politicized. If anybody is interested in politicizing this, then that person really has not appreciated the extent of this problem. And you are media people, you are part of the governance arrangements of this country. And you will do well as well to get yourself involved when the distribution starts and report to the people of Ghana what you see. If there is any scheme to distribute these resources to members of one political party or another, or if party card will be the basis for identifying who benefits, media people have the right to report, as you have reported on many, many other issues in this country. I also answered the question on inflation in my remarks. Maybe my friend was late when I was talking about that. But really, I haven't seen the figures yet. The figures were produced by the Statistical Service, and we'll wait and see. But as an economist myself, I know that food inflation dominates our inflation. And therefore, when food prices are rising as a result of food shortage, the figures will show what the results will be. There are other factors that affect inflation, and so to the effect that the positive effect of those factors outweigh the negative effect of food prices, you still will expect inflation to trend down. Otherwise, inflation will go up. So I hope you understand the context. Then the last question, have we assessed the cost of the ban on exports? Really, this is a crisis we are faced with. You are not going to wait until you assess the cost before you respond. Where you have time, you will sit down and do all those analyses. I even want to commend the Ministry of Food and Agriculture for the good job they have done in assembling the data that they have shown to us. It would have been practically difficult within the time frame to assemble the kind of information they have produced to us. And so, bear with us. We will continue to assess as we go. And as I said to some people recently, when you have a patient who is dying, you first of all need to intervene to stabilize the patient before you then start to think about which is the best hospital to take the patient to for specialist attention. And so that is exactly what we are trying to do. I believe I've answered the questions that concerned me, and the Minister for Agric will take the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. This looks like very friendly questions. One district, one dam. When my officer appeared before the Public Accounts Committee, which is the director of JIDA, he did mention and has provided locations of all the 574 dams that have been built, each of them with an irrigable area of about 15 hectares. So the dams are there. We are talking about a drought or a near drought condition, a dry spell. So when there is a dry spell, it means that there is no water. The dams are not rivers or streams or they are from river in this case. They are dugouts that holds rain water. And therefore, if there is no rain, the dams cannot function to support. But if there is rain, then it can store some water and at least extend the cropping life of the irrigable area that the dams are situated. Yes, indeed, we have built 80 warehouses, 1,000 metric tons each. They are all over the country, about 69 of them completed. The remainder, maybe in about the next couple of months, they will be completed. We are putting an advert for private sector person to come and manage these warehouses. So they are there and they are not a failure. What it is that we need more warehouses. We consume 2.5 million metric tons of maize. We consume about 1.4 million metric tons of rice. Soya, sorghum, millet, close to about another million metric tons. What we have built is about 80,000 metric tons. So your grains that you consume per annum, you are looking at what? About 5 million metric tons. But your warehouses, the entire installed capacity of warehouses that we have in this country, both private sector, for excluding cocoa, for grains, we are looking at about 250,000 metric tons. So it is not a failure of policy. What we need to do is for government to invest more money into the construction of grain reserves. And that is why we are building a 60,000 metric ton in one location in Hwehwe in the Kwao East District, such a silo to be able to hold the grain reserve. The ECOWAS grain reserve is a reserve that in part is also managed by National Buffer Stock. These are grain reserves that we all contribute into. So it is not a grain reserve that is for example, our neighboring countries. It's for all of us. Last year, we had a big bumper harvest. If you were in this country, everybody knows that last year we had a great bumper harvest, which bumper harvest led to a 50 kg bag of maize dropping to as low as 145 Ghana cedis. We were in this country where farmers were complaining that because of the bumper they can't even sell their maize because the prices have become that low. So the investment that we put in is working. So tapping from, when you have a bumper harvest, you invest in this grain reserve. And when you have times like this, you fall on the grain reserve for your portion to feed your country. So it is not a failure. It is something that we have all contributed to. Kofi Tremantin asked a question of political season cash distribution. I think the finance minister has dealt with it. But let me also add that from August of last year to August of this year, we have done probably in one season the single largest distribution of inputs in Ghana. Check the records. The single largest distribution of inputs to our farmers have been done from last year August to this year August. Around the country, did you hear one comment from any corner of this country, any district, that program was politicized? No. You don't politicize food. And we have a record of that distribution. When we gave the inputs to the flood victims, we distributed about inputs to 20,000 people for the flood victims. Not a single person mentioned that it had been politicized. And the record is there to show that every single flood victim that was identified received the inputs. And we gave it to the districts, and not one person complained that the issue was politicized. When we gave the grant inputs for those who had registered on the GAP, not a single person can accuse the Ministry of Government or its persons of politicizing the distribution of grant inputs. When we distributed inputs to vulnerable farmers to be identified by members of Parliament, we wrote a letter to Parliament and gave every member of Parliament to identify 100 vulnerable farmers that may have escaped us to go and receive these fertilizers. We didn't politicize it. We don't have the record of politicizing food in the last 12 months, and we will not start destroying that record now. GMO distribution, you can be sure that we exist to protect the country's food systems, and we will not adulterate it with anything that is not required to be in a system. Why did we not plan for today? And are we the only ones facing this situation? Just a simple Google will tell you what is happening in the sub-region. Just this year, Côte d'Ivoire banned the export of grains. Nigeria has banned the export of grains. Burkina has banned the export of grains. Some countries may not disclose their actions at all. I mean, imagine that we come and stand here, we don't announce the ban of the export of grains, but then when you reach the ports, you can't take it out. We have to be transparent with the people of Ghana in the actions that we want to take, and that is exactly what we're doing. We never experienced, we had a bumper last year, and if not for this situation, up until now, we've not really had any challenges with food, even today, except for the north that we're expecting the early maturing crops that are suffering now. In the southern sector, we don't have a challenge with food. Everything that we're talking about is what can affect us from September, October, when we expect the northern grains to hit the market. If they don't hit the market, then we will have food challenges. And that is what we are working now to ensure that by end of September, October, there's enough food in the system to stabilize the situation. We have mentioned about the politicization of the crisis. That will not be the case. The country is assured that we are here to help our citizens. We don't have that record of politicizing our food systems, and we shall not start. The cost has been dealt with by the finance minister. There was a question on climate change. The question if we will include the opposition in the implementation of the program. Any Ghanaian willing and able to help, this is a major operation of food relief. It is a major operation on grant distribution of inputs. Any Ghanaian that wants to help, any conduit that wants to support, except the politicization or the tribalization, or however you want to call these things, that will not be allowed. But anybody that wants to help in this operation to make sure that we have provided relief to our Ghanaians who have been affected, we've opened our doors to do that. Finally, on the Bagri Dam, it depends on how the spillage is conducted by our neighboring country. When they have a huge challenge and they open the dam full throttle, then we have a major effect down south. But if it is regulated, then our rivers are able to contain it. But then the spillage in itself, we have a lot of dams that are able to absorb some of contain some of the water, mitigating the effect of the spillage. And that is a communication that has gone on between Ghana and our neighboring country, that we cannot stop them from spilling, but we can engage them on how they spill so that it doesn't affect the fellow humans that are down south. And that is the engagement that has gone on. So we are seeing, sometimes we engage them, but then the situation up there compels them to open full throttle, and then we suffer. We are monitoring the situation. We are working with our neighbors to ensure that effects on our farmers are minimized. Other than that, it will further compound the challenges that we are trying to deal with. Thank you.
I want to just add a little to what the minister said. He actually forgot to say it. He would have said it. But I have come to learn that MOFA has a database of farmers across the country. And the data was sourced from the farmers themselves. They have a system, an online system, people have to go and register. And that was the basis for the distribution of the inputs that the minister talked about from August till date. And so, if you're asking whether the opposition will be involved, what I plan to do as a member of parliament, right from this announcement, I'm going to my constituency to tell my people who have not registered, who are not on that data, the farmers who are not on that data, to go and register. And it's online. You don't need party card to register online. I'm going to do that. All you may need is your national ID card. And that was not issued on the basis of party affiliation. I'm going to do that. I will expect my colleagues, members of parliament on the opposition side, to equally go down their constituencies and sensitize their people so that they can get onto the data base to enable them receive the support. We are not going to go to the street and start distributing to people. The support is going to farmers. And I also want to talk about the cash transfer. The World Bank already supports LEAP, the LEAP program. And they have a $30 million facility they are injecting into the LEAP. The beneficiaries of LEAP are already known. There is a database on that. And so we are asking the World Bank to increase the amount usually given to LEAP beneficiaries, because some of them, in fact, all of them, are very vulnerable. They are vulnerable people where there is food shortage and cost of living increases. It will affect them. Their conditions will get worse. We are asking the World Bank to increase how much money they deploy through LEAP, Livelihood Empowerment Against Poverty. Again, the database is already there, and the database has been sourced over time. Again, not on the basis of party affiliation. And so, this country, we politicize everything. Every well-intended program, we politicize. I didn't expect questions on politicization here. Well, we are talking serious issues. It's about the livelihoods. And we are using systems to ensure that we are somehow scientific in our approach. Because I know that most people may not be on this database because they are not educated. And so what we need to do to help our people as members of parliament from the majority minority side is to go out there and sensitize our people and help them to register to be on this database so that they qualify to receive the benefits that the government will be distributing to them. And so I want to appeal to you, my brothers and sisters here, our media friends. If tomorrow you all put one advert or another, you know, encouraging people, you can seek information from MOFA staff here how to get online and register. If you could put one advert or another, you will certainly be contributing significantly to getting farmers, whether they are affected or not affected, they should register. Because the database, I see it, is not only for farmers in the affected areas. The database also has farmers from areas that are not affected. It's a national database. So I want to encourage you. Minister, you left that out. So I wanted to fill in that gap for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Since it has come up, to register, go to gap.com, GHAAP.com, and register as a farmer. You can self-serve, you can register yourself, but that is not the end of the process. So you cannot just, there's a grant coming, support coming for farmers, so let me sit in my office and register. It doesn't work like that. You can register and provide your information, but the district agric officer must go with you to your farm and take a polygon map of the farm. Okay, so the registration process, you provide all your details and your Ghana card, and you submit. It doesn't end there. You have to go with a district agric officer. We have a lot of extension officers. We have provided them with almost 3,000 tablets, Samsung A9 tablets, and about 300 laptops nationwide. The app is also on Google Play, gap.com. You can download it and go and map. You can even map the farm yourself. But that will not complete the process. An agric officer must go with you to your farm and validate that information if you did a self-service. Other than that, when you have provided the information, you go to the agric office, they go with you to your farm and take a polygon map. They walk with you around the farm and capture the size of your farm. We did this to ensure that when we are giving an input to a farmer, that input must be given on the farm. Okay, if you give an input outside of the polygon of your farm, it will not capture as delivered. Unless it is, in this case, this crisis or the flood reliefs. It also allows for us to monitor our extension officers. You have to go to a farmer's farm once a month. Okay, once a week. You can sit in your office and send me a report here that this week, present. We don't want that. You have to take the tablet and be in the polygon zone, okay, and submit that you have been there. That is how we will know that you have actually visited the farm. So it is a very, very comprehensive system. To register self-service, go to ghaap.com and register. And then the district office will follow up with you, go and take the map of your farm. If you are, in fact, for you to be part of this, receive a grant under this crisis, you will have to also attach an image of yourself standing in the polygon So you cannot just register and go and take a football pack and submit to us. It won't work. Okay? Just as the images are shown on the screen, that image must be in the polygon of your farm before you can benefit from. So the level of security, transparency to protect the public purse is bar none, at least as we know it in the sub-region. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, on that note, we will take the last round of questions. And then, yes. Okay, I've seen a lady's hand at the back. And then now take the two at the back. Okay, you have asked, so let me give them the opportunity first, and then I'll take the last round from it. Yes. So 1, 2 at the back, and then we'll come to this.
Mine is not a question, but to add up to what Minister said. Okay. I am a district chief executive with the grant fertilizer. When I received mine, I actually wanted to know how many of my people are benefiting. And we had 620. And I can confidently stand here and tell you that not even up to 120 people are from my party. So just to add up to Minister that it is something that is open for everyone to register. So there's nothing like party colors attached to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I saw Echo's hand, and then, okay.
Okay, Honorable Minister, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Echo for Bloomberg. Honorable, pardon some of the comments my colleagues might have made, because there seems to be a fair amount of knowledge gap between what you do and what we know. I don't know whether you have a press call, but I haven't ever been invited to a new press conference by the Agric Ministry. So, and I know I can speak same for many of my colleagues. I'm super sure that all that you're doing may be great, but we do not know. So pardon our naivety and mine as well as I proceed. And it's a bit interesting that our brethren in the Sahelian areas have not implemented planting for food and jobs. However, they're able to send us tomatoes and onions and what have you. We all are rivers and water, we still can go through a process like this. And it's interesting to know that in such a time that we are having climate change, that is also when galamsey is on the rise in this country. And all our rivers are so polluted, we cannot even use to do irrigation. Besides, the crops do not really need rains per se. It's water they need for them to grow and get well. We have our front plains, what is happening, what is coming up of it. So when it happens like a country such blessed like Ghana go through such a crisis, then it begs a lot of us to ask a lot of questions. My other issue is about cocoa. We started a discussion before you got here. You have decided that you are not going to do the syndication anymore, although that 2 billion annual average was supporting the economy and the currency. Honorable, what are you doing with cocoa, and why have you stopped the syndication? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. There was another hand at the back. Okay, and then this gentleman, before I take the last questions from you. Okay.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Edward Akwa from Republic Press. My question has to do with, just last week, we heard about the Bagrin Dam spillage, and some farms have been submerged. At least we wanted a report on that issue as well, because most of these farms were affected in a way. So if any issue or if any information about that, please.
Thank you. There was a hand here, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Danilo Dromens. I work with CTFM and Channel 1 TV. My question is, how many farmers have been registered under the PFJ 2.0? And I also want to find out the issue about there's been the concern that the issue about the role of aggregators are being taken over by DCAs and all that. I wanted to find out from the ministry what it is doing to address that. And then also, the purchase of the 20 workstations for the Ghana Meteorological Agency, how sustainable is this initiative? by the ministry.
Thank you. So we'll take the last round, follow-ups. Yes.
Yes, I want to clarify the question I asked. I'm not saying that you are going to give to B and leave A or do discrimination, but I'm saying that during COVID, the money that came into government, people were saying that the government used some of the money for other purposes. In fact, they were even asking for accountability. That is why I'm looking for the input of other political parties so that they will be in the known and see whatever happens. Anyway, Mr. Agric Minister, there's a glut of tomato at Fifi, and you're saying they are putting up a 60,000 capacity warehouse. And I saw in a social media where they were lamenting about the low price of tomatoes. I know Fifi plants tomatoes, onions, pepper, mango. That's where I'm coming from. So I know the terrain very well. And what are you going to do, as it were, to address some of these glut? Because the farmers are crying. When we are crying for shortage of food up north, they're also crying for glut of food down south in Fifi.
Okay, yeah. So you take Atamens and then you take Clifford, or whoever you take first.
Yeah. So, Honorable Minister, given the porous nature of our borders, how are we going to enforce the ban of export? Do we have any policing mechanisms to ensure that people comply with the ban? Thank you very much.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, thank you. Athamensa, once again, from GNA. Yes, I want to find out, during the COVID time, the ministry set up a farmers center at the ministry, where the ministry sells food directly to the citizens at a cheaper rate.
Okay.
And when there was food crisis, it doesn't affect only the crop farmers, it affects every household. Okay. So I want to find out if there's any plan of maybe setting up district centers where people can go there to buy food at a cheaper rate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Minister, you got that. He said during COVID and at a time that food prices went up, the Ministry of Food and Agriculture carted food to some centers so that people can get food, cheap food to buy. Are you considering that? Okay, so I take that to be the last question. I will invite the honorable ministers back for their responses and concluding remarks. Okay.
So I have one question, very simple question on syndication. And I want to refer you to a press release by Cocoa Board, which indicated that they were not abandoning syndication. The syndication negotiations are ongoing, except that it will not raise the total amount required to purchase cocoa. A syndication, if you want further information, I can tell you that it is not bringing in more than 600 million US. Meanwhile, the RF, the request for proposal, was up to 1.5 billion US. And so it is not being abandoned. It is being pursued side by side with alternative ways of raising funds to buy cocoa. Thank you.
Thank you. You have dragged me to respond. Ordinarily, I came to observe and support my colleague. So good afternoon. So I want to assure you to the nation that the security agencies are immediately activating their network to ensure that the ban on cereals, which has been listed, are regularly enforced so that nobody will take even a single grain out. We have the approved routes and the unapproved routes. About 80% to 90% of all exports pass through the approved routes. And so I just want to assure you that already we have a lot of security personnel from today to ensure that no truck loads of grains will leave Ghana across to anywhere. The unapproved routes, we will also get all the security agencies to ensure that even the 20% does not leave our nation. it helps us as well because we have a big problem, which is the terrorist attacks all over across the other side. So if the ban is put in place, it's enabling us to deploy actively along the borders. It will help. But security is as good as the citizens themselves. So please take advantage of, if you see something, say something, and help the security agencies as well. You yourself are security people yourselves. So as long as you see something that has escaped the eagle eye of the security, please let us know. We'll act well. We are deploying all across the borders, particularly the northern part. We are also to the east and the south. And so we'll ask citizens to support the security agencies, that if for some reason there is some unapproved route or approved route, or somebody sees something that is going on that is not nice, please let us know so that we can act appropriately. It's for the good of all of us that we should not make our citizens suffer. If we have something that is unexpected and Parliament itself is even acting, then all of us have a role to play. It's not the fault of any government that rain has not come for the last 2 months. And so all of us as citizens must ensure that we work together. It happens. And so if we work together, it's natural disaster. We should be able to overcome. So we want to assure you that we will actively ensure that the plan government has put in place or the decision government has put in place, we would enforce it to the latter. Thank you very much.
Thank you. On the screen is a live dashboard of the gap, but this is the MOFA view. You will see that we have the total number of farmers registered is 556,688. And I'm sure in the next minute or so, when they click on it, you see that the number will change because more farmers are registering. And then also these 556,000 farmers have registered a total of 8,160,000 hectares of farmlands. So this is like, I mean, we can drill down to a farmer, you see the size of the farm. We are employing satellite data to be able to zoom into the farm and see the activities of the farm. The president has directed, the president has directed that we engage a company called planet.com so that we can have a view on everybody's farm. So when you scroll down you see where it says pending farmer registration. It means all those who have registered on the GAP, but their farms have not been validated. The polygon map of the farms have not been taken. You will see that also there. So, and we have the graphs by farmers per region, with the northern region giving us the highest number of registered farmers. We also have an inventory of all the stock of fertilizer that we have in the country. On the GAP, we are able to track every single fertilizer in the country. So all the input suppliers that we have in the country, when you bring your fertilizer, you report to us, and we help manage the inventory, because at any point in time, we need to know the stock of fertilizers or agro-inputs that we have in the country. We have also the number of farmers per commodity. And you see that maize is the most cropped item of farmers in this country. We have it by gender, by household, whatever statistical rule that you want to derive from this, we're able to pull that information from you. Is that it from this side? You can? Okay, so great. So with this system also, we are able to tell from the beginning of the planting season what the output of grains is going to be at the end of the planting season. Because we know the fertilizer that we have given you, we know the seed that we have given you, we know the yield of the seed, we know when you planted, we know when you will harvest and aggregate. We are able to put together, say that the northern sector, from the start of the planting season to the end of the planting season, this is the total number of grains that we have. And if we have excess capacity, we are able to invite our neighboring countries to officially apply through the government to get the excess grains from the buffer stock. That is the precision agriculture that we are talking about, to be able to ensure that agriculture is organized in a proper way. Our humble gentleman from GNA, Atamensa, I see that you took the counsel of the finance minister seriously, because your question now came with a very humbling tone. That is how life works. Yes, it's okay. At least you have been advised and you took it. I like people like that. Now, Ghanaians buying tomatoes from Burkina Faso is a challenge for all of us, because right across the border is massive tomato production backed by heavy investment in irrigation. We are trying to reverse the course to put in more investment in Tamni Tono, especially in the northern sector, to allow for tomato production in these areas. Until such a time, it's not a problem. But don't forget that they also buy a lot of grains from us. So now we are buying tomatoes from Burkina. Admittedly, we don't want it that way, but they are also buying a lot of tomatoes, grains from us. Probably almost 60-70% of the grains that they consume there is produced by us. They are buying a lot of soya from us. So that in itself, trading is not a bad thing. What the complaint is that we have the capacity to produce tomatoes. So why are we not leveraging on that? We are working on it. Okay, we are working on it, and we will get there. Now, we export a lot of yam in the whole world. We are the largest exporter of yam. Not the largest producers, that is Nigeria, but nobody exports more yam than we do. But I don't think that the countries that are receiving our yams are going to go on demonstrations because they are getting yams from Ghana. All Ghanaians are saying is that we have the capacity to produce tomatoes. Let's get on with it. And that is exactly what we're doing. From Plains. You know, I'm from that part of town. You know, since I have been agric minister, we have put 3 billion Ghana cedis in irrigation schemes in our farm plains alone. A chairman from Kunedu, Ataniata, Atonsu, all the way to such a farm plains. 3 billion Ghana cedis in irrigation infrastructure. And if I knew you were going to ask me questions outside of the crisis, I'm sure I would have brought you some pictures. But you can come to the office tomorrow, and I'll show you the investment that we are putting in the farm plains in the last 12 months. And that is the reason why we know that in 3-4 years, there's going to be a lot of grains coming from the schemes that we are building in our farm plains. And that is why we are putting up the 60,000 metric ton grain silo right around there. Okay, fortunately, it's in my constituency. I'm very, very happy about that. You know, that's why we are citing it there to be able to hold the strategic grain stock. So a lot is going on in our farm plains. We should feel the impact very soon. I did talk extensively about the Bagri Dam. So I don't want to go repeating myself. How sustainable is equipment that we are giving to GMET? We have a program called FSRP, Food Systems Resilience Program, which program has a heavy concentration on climate issues. And locally, the organization that can provide localized weather information is our GMET. They are constrained, and therefore we approach them to get them the equipment that they need to to provide us the synthesized data that we need. Because we cannot operate weather stations, automated weather stations. We can't operate them. The data that will come out of it, we will not even understand them in the way that it comes. But they can take the devices, synthesize it, and then give us the output that we are able to push to our farmers on the gap. If you are registered on the gap and you go to the farmer module, you see that there's a portion for weather information. And we are also now going to push to them on SMS and voice notes for those who are not lettered, to be able to listen to, this is the start of the planting season, this is it. All the information is going to be pushed to our farmers now that we have the gap. There was also a question of DCEs taking over aggregator functions. That is not true, can never be true, will not happen, we will not accept it. What is happening is that we have 261 districts, but we have been able to confirm, validate, and employ 64 aggregators. So the districts that we don't have aggregators, we've asked the district directors of agriculture, not DCEs, district directors of agriculture, to hold place as aggregators. So that if you're a farmer in this area and you apply for input, we will channel the input to the district director of agriculture to be given to the farmer, not the district chief executive. I want to know one DCE who is acting as an aggregator in this country, not one. And every political actor in this country belongs to a district, and they can confirm to you that it has never happened. 2, we sent grant fertilizers to 3 actors in this country. The first actor is the DCE, sort of the common fund system, that you are close to the people. There may be some vulnerable farmers who have not been captured on the gap. Go give them these fertilizers and capture them. We gave these 100 farmers to every DCE in this country, and it was documented. 2, we called members of parliament and issued an official letter to every member of parliament. I personally gave the copy of the minority to Atoforsim myself, and I can show you on your phone, and he acknowledged it. You take that letter to the assembly and you collect your grant fertilizer to give to vulnerable farmers that the member of parliament has identified. 275 of them. I got one too. You register the farmers on the gap. We also gave 15 farmers to the district director of agriculture. So we ensure that there's a fair playing field, no politics in the food business, at least in the food production business in this matter. So there's nowhere in this country that DCE are acting as aggregators. In the unlikely event that there is such, that's not come to our notice. None of my officers have reported same, but trust me, we'll deal with it very, very rapidly and aggressively so. The defense minister has taken the question on security. We have dams, 574 of them. I did mention that if there's no rain, see, irrigation schemes are different from dams. On irrigation schemes, you are drawing the water from major rivers. Irrigation director, that's right. Let me try and use your... Good. Irrigation schemes, you are drawing the water from major water bodies into your dams. That is different from the community dams that we built that are harvesting rain. So if there is a dry spell, you don't expect the dams to function because there's no water. That is really what we are talking about. So know the difference. I had to educate myself, and I believe that with these words, you stand educated. Okay? If there is no water, the dams cannot survive. But if there's rain, we can harvest the water and it will hold the water for a much longer time than allowing it to just run off. That is the difference between these dams and the irrigation schemes like we're trying to do in Afam Plains, in Tono, in Via, Tamni, Botanga, and now in Afam Plains. Will we employ food centers as we did under the Planting for Food and Jobs Phase 1, where we brought in food from buffer areas to distribute to? We shall not do that. That is not what we seek to do. Most of the foods that we will bring in will be on the markets, except the ones that are going to go to the affected farmers. Even they will pick from the established vendors who have shops throughout the country. So we don't intend to set up special joints or shops or the likes to redistribute food. It's going to be a receipt system. If you have been identified on the gap, you pick your receipt, you go to the shop, you pick your assigned product, and really that is what it is. I hope I have successfully answered. Yes. You know, I mentioned that we are putting a silo for grains in Hwehwe. We are also putting in pack houses. We are putting, how many pack houses are we putting in Hwehwe? 2. We are putting 2 pack houses in the area. I mean, since in fact, it's my constituency. So the decision to put 2 pack houses there was very, very easy to make. But as you know, it is a heavy tomato and onion producing area. We have a lot of post-harvest losses from that side, and we are putting in these pack houses to ensure that we don't suffer these post-harvest losses. I hope I have been able to answer your questions, and with my colleague ministers, me pese medam wase se moba betie asopam Ghana fo nyina atorenchem kese e na ato yakuafo ewo atifi mantem a free esrem eba bono eko oti yakuafo a ewo ho omo normal ye a woni dua ye eye free June ebesi August nyina ahye nobaya omudua ye no nsuo entimi ameguso ama eka kese na aba saa semi a ababetu akuafo yi enye omope na eba be ha omo eba be ha Ghanafo nyina ewo yedua ne semu ebi se America kra ya ye kwakoduru akobro nyamu no nnuane a yedi eye ebro emo ne niema no dodo na efri eho na eba na asem kese we so ayeden ababebom aban intimi ntena ho enhwe ebi se akuafo no wonu sika wonu di share adwumanim no sika no ayeden ahye